everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast, and of course, we got Stat Guy, Philly Sports Guy, back from New Orleans. How's it going, everybody?
Good.
I'm not as crispy this morning as I was yesterday morning.
So no heavy drinking at the airport?
No. Actually, I got a very large water and threw in some hydrates in that, which is a cheapo version of liquid IV, and drank that whole thing down, and then flew home, and then had a cocktail once I got back home, just to try to take the edge off of a hangover that didn't come.
Well, I mean, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I woke up drunk, and the hangover never showed up. So it was just like I went from drunk to not drunk to
that is the right transition.
Exactly.
Now, fortunately for me, I don't get hangovers, although I imagine the first time one rolls through, it's going to be rough. When my body's like, finally, you're done with this.
That's the way it works sometimes. It's like, okay, it's like, but I was, as I had mentioned offline before we got started, I was a little torn up the night before, deliberately and purposefully torn up. When there is multiple videos of me dancing, you know that it was a good night, because I'm not a dancer.
Yeah. That means you were fully in the bag.
Fully in the bag. But I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. At least from all the stories that people said about me.
Right on.
That was that's the best way I can explain that.
So we had a pretty good game, sort of, on Monday night. And of course, what I'm talking about is the Bills-Jags game. The other game was just two bad teams. It was like a bum fight on the corner, right? Like neither team wanted to win, and then one of them just ultimately did. But the Bills absolutely just beat the hell out of the Jags, and you got to wonder where this Jags team is headed. Now, the Bills are off to a great start and look to be a better team than I would have thought they were going to be this year.
Yeah.
The Jags look like they don't know what they're doing.
And I thought it was going to be hard to find a team that was as bad as the Giants or Carolina. But you could make a case right now that Jacksonville is the worst team in the NFL right now.
Well, especially with the Panthers with Dalton.
Yep, and the Giants won a game last week too, so they're 1-2, and even Tennessee is 0-3, but two of their three losses, they were actually right there. They just turned the ball over too much, but Jacksonville just looks like a dumpster fire. And if there was a coach that was going to be fired mid-season, Doug Peterson's got to be at the top of the list right now, because he went from being a coach. Well, he went from having his team as one of those teams on the rise a couple of years ago when they won the AFC South to a down year last year, and now to a complete shit show this year, because that team looks like it has no direction, no desire to win, and just no motivation on the field at all right now.
Yeah, I mean they just look like 11 dudes that have never played football just went out on the field. Like it's the have you ever played football?
The bad news bears of football.
Exactly. Yeah. You ever played football? No. Do you like football? No. Great, you're on the team.
Like the longest yard with Adam Sandler. You want to play against the guards? Yeah, that sign me up. Oh, the Bills were the guards yesterday, and they kicked the shit out of you.
Yeah, no question.
Well, and I would have thought, that he might have been able to do something different. I mean, I got to imagine, like, obviously this is going to fall on Doug Peterson here, but like how far he has fallen.
And the thing with Doug Peterson too, though, is he's always been known as a good quarterback head coach, which is why Carson Wentz and Nick Foles had so much success with him, like, right away. And yes, Trevor Lawrence had a lot of success with him one season, but Lawrence has regressed the last 2 years under Doug Peterson. And that's got to be a concern if you're Jacksonville too, because Doug Peterson's strength was always working with young quarterbacks and helping him get to the best of their abilities, and that's not showing right now with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. No, it's
and I'm not even sure where they go from here. Like I mean, I watched a little bit of that game, but the other game, was actually a good game, kind of.
it was a game.
No defense.
Yeah.
But Washington now 2-1. Like Chase Daniels is looking like somebody who might actually be okay in this league. He broke rookie records it was like 21 of 23, some yards. So he had like a 91.6 completion percentage. It's the highest by any rookie in their rookie season ever for any game.
Yeah.
Threw for 2 touchdowns. Was able to move the offense. That game didn't even have a punt. It's the first game ever that both teams didn't punt and scored on every possession.
Yeah, it wasn't also the first game that didn't have a turnover either.
Right, no punts, no turnovers, and so and they scored on every possession. So there's never been a game that's happened that way.
Yeah,
I guess the closest would have been the Eagles Super Bowl against the Patriots, where that also was very close, except we had one turnover that was almost like a punt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a Lawrence problem or a coaching problem or
who's their backup.
Last year they had the guy that had like 3 names. I can never think of his name. I'll look it up right now. I don't know if it's the same back. Oh, Mac Jones is the backup this year. Mac Jones got in last night.
How did he look?
He was 5 of 7, but he only threw for like 44 yards, so it's not like he was.
So they was.
catching the
I mean,
field or
but that's their offense, anyways, or that's the Doug Peterson offense. 5 completions for 44 yards sounds about right. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they bench Lawrence. You know,
I mean, you have to at some point if your offense continues to look the way it does.
Well, and you want to keep a job,
Right?
As the coach, you gotta start to. You have to be able to see like, hey, yeah, I don't know what is happening here, but you guys aren't doing it, and we have to do something to make it happen. So,
CJ Beathard was their backup last year.
Yeah, because Lawrence goes 21 for 38, 178, a touchdown and an interception. Like, it's not the worst stat line ever, but
I think even like sticking with the Cincinnati game for a minute too, I think Zach Taylor is going to be on the hot seat pretty soon as well. Because yes, Cincinnati starts historically slow every year, but with how good some of these teams in the AFC have gotten, the Bills, the Chiefs, Steelers are 3-0, which they're not going to keep that pace up, but they're still a good team. Houston's 2-1. You can't afford to keep starting 0-3 every single year. You can't afford to keep putting your teams in these 2-3 game holes 3 games into the season, expect to play catch up the whole year and try to win the division and make a playoff run. Because if you don't get a top 2 seed, chances are you're not going to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, they lost all their defense.
Yeah.
All that defense is gone. So now you've got nobody like that. People are just racking up points on the Bengals.
Yep.
So it's like you're stuck. You're stuck right now. You put all your weapons on offense, and now you're trying to outscore teams when you have a peewee team on the other side of the ball that isn't stopping Washington.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Listen,
exactly.
Washington's an okay team. They ain't great. You know what I mean? It's
no, and there's a few of these teams that play exactly this way, right? It's the Bengals, it's the Jags, it's the Dolphins, where they're just like, okay, we're going to do stuff on offense and just hope we can outrun people. Like it doesn't work. Like
well, the thing with Cincinnati too is they also lost Tyler Boyd to Tennessee, and they have not replaced Tyler Boyd. And yes, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase get all the attention, but Tyler Boyd was their best possession wide receiver whenever they needed a big catch. Tyler Boyd was the one that Joe Burrow always went to.
Yeah. So Dan Quinn is a decent coach, and Washington's going to be intriguing to watch, right? Because I mean, there's so many new pieces. Like they're going to be interesting. I I feel like they're a lot like the Texans were last year, where they just got a lot of new pieces, and they're going to have moments where they surprise some people, and they're going to lose some games that you think they should win. Washington will be that mixed bag this year for sure.
I look at the one thing that I think is going to save Washington is one, they finally beat the Giants. You know what I mean? So the Giants are that bad. The fact that the Giants won last week just shows that teams are starting too early sniffing themselves. Because the Giants should have never won that game. They should have lost that game too. But they had to win one, so it is. And I think that I think Dallas stinks. Like, I think Dallas is in for. I keep saying 6-11. I said they were going to implode last year. The implosion has begun, and they're going to have a really tough time getting out of it this year. I think and I think Washington is going to maybe sweep that series. So if they split with the Eagles and sweep the Giants and Dallas, just because I think they're that bad, and it's very possible that both could happen, that now you got 5 games. That's 5 wins that we haven't even accounted for yet.
Yeah.
You're 2-1 right now, and you got 5 more wins, so that's 7.
Yeah.
Now you just got to win 3 of the other 6. Now you're in the playoffs.
And that's why I say they make me think a lot of last year's Texans.
And I give Dan Quinn a ton of credit, because you look at the coaching staff he's put together. I think that helps too, because you have Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator, which great quarterback coach, obviously, because you saw kind of what he did with Kyler Murray in Arizona when he was with Arizona. He's got David Blau as an assistant quarterback coach. David Blau was a career backup, but somebody that was recently in the NFL. He's got Anthony Lynn on that team, Bobby Ingram, Sharif Floyd. Like, a lot of former NFL players are on his coaching staff, which is actually a good thing to have, because former NFL players can relate to the players nowadays because they recently just played in the game. And then you have a guy like Anthony Lynn and Cliff Kingsbury both. Both of them were head coaches in the NFL. Both of them have succeeded as offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator roles in the past. So he's got one of the better coaching staffs in the NFL with him to help him out.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, and that's really what it comes down to. When I start thinking about how the Eagles, and I look back at the game that, in the first half, I'm ready to fry Sirianni. I mean, Sirianni won the game in spite of himself. These decisions, you got to get the 0 off the board. Got to get the 0 off the board.
When you can't go for every 4th down.
I was going to say field goals are okay. They do count for 3 points.
Especially because he had multiple opportunities to put him up. So, I mean, like, if you forego one, okay. I mean, I get it. But when you have multiple, like, all of a sudden you could have had 6 or 9 points on the board. Like, that is a game-changing kind of number.
It's not like you have a crappy kicker either. You have one of the best kickers in the NFL too, so making field goals shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Right. And the only time, actually, they go for a 61-yard field goal that, because he hasn't kicked at all, like, this season.
Nice and loose.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it was short. It was short, and it was off to the right, so it didn't matter. But it was short. Like, he's not a short kicker. Like, he can kick it 65 yards.
No, for sure.
So.
Well, he made that one last year that was 62 yards out in like the pouring rain against Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 58 yards.
It would have been good from like 62 because he cleared it by pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember I was at that game. Well, I've been at every game, but that's beside the point. That was like the last game that we won.
Joe is totally right here. Yeah, until Jerry Jones isn't the guy, you guys are going to be just not playing good football when it comes to December and January.
Or now this year, October.
In this case, all year.
Exactly.
The NFC East is going to want wind up being, like I said, I think that if the coaching continues, if I swear to God, if they lost that game in New Orleans, you would start to hear rumblings about, like I said, if they went 1-3, if we go down
Oh,
to Tampa and lose that game and we lost in New Orleans, like he saved his job to the end of the season now by winning that New Orleans game. Had he lost that game, there may have been a chance that they made a change and like lose this week at Tampa. They may have made a change on the bye week.
I could see that completely, especially the way that last year ended, because then you'd be like, okay, after week 10, right, the wheels fell off. And then had they lost those games, you would have been coming into this game with that same kind of, feel to it. So, yeah, I wouldn't have doubted that at all.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time. Like I said, I think, well, Dallas, you can talk about Dallas all you want. Dallas stinks as a team right now. They have put themselves in this cap hell, and they aren't going to get out of it. They're not getting out of it at all.
No, in fact, they just made it worse by signing the guys they already have.
Well,
So-
I mean, to his comment, how he said that the fact that they couldn't afford Henry makes you think they have massive financial problems. 90% of their salary cap is taken up by 4 people.
Exactly.
So obviously you can't afford players when you have Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Sue, Micah Parsons, and one other person that takes up 90% of your cap. You literally have no flexibility to do anything.
They probably still could have done some things to make it so Henry was there. But because they didn't, it was, enjoyable to watch Henry just walk in there and beat the hell out of them. And it was nice to see the Ravens finally use the running back the way they were supposed to use it.
Yeah.
Well, but you also saw them fall apart at the end.
Yes.
They barely hung on. I mean, like I said, Dak is the greatest at the end of the game. When the game's already over, that's when I play my best game.
Yeah, the pressure's off.
Right. I mean, like even at the end of the game with David Carr, against the Eagles, I said to the guy next to me, I'm just like, he's going to throw an interception, right? This is what's coming. Next play, interception. I knew it was coming because the Saints are very similar to the Eagles, in terms of, their quarterback play. Like he's going to force something in there he shouldn't force, and it's going to be an interception. Just like when Jalen threw that interception early in the game in the end zone.
Yeah.
The defender actually had a good read on it. That was a timing route.
Yep.
The timing was there. The defender jumped it, saw it and jumped it. I saw it. I saw the timing. I saw him come. I then watched the defender kind of jump it. I was like, ooh, damn, that's tough. He needed to throw it maybe a half a second earlier, and a little bit more, left. But I gave the pass on that. Like, okay, just a good play on that. But just the calls, the offensive calls, the way that they are playing is just bad. Stop going it for 4th and 4.
That's the thing, right? Like if you're 4th and 1, I can get into it. You do it on 4th and 4 one time, cool, right? Like, all right, yeah, give it a go. You miss that, maybe rethink going 4th and 4 maybe the rest of the day. Like maybe they kind of know what you're up to. Take the points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit like, I'm a big fan of get the points when they're in front of you, right? Like if you have a harder to make 4th down, right? Again, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, like I'm with it, go ahead and roll the dice. That's cool. When it's 4th and 4, that is a harder pickup, especially when you are down towards the red zone. The defense,
but not in the red zone. That was the other thing. They were only the 30-yard line. Like, yo, you kicked the fucking field goal.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're giving them the ball close to midfield at that point. Like there was so much wrong with the play call. And again, like I'm fine with one of them. But I mean, when you give up realistically 9 points, right? Because there was 2 that were 4th downs that he missed and 1 that, they probably should have still went for a field goal on. So, I mean, there could have been 6 or 9 points there that they just didn't get. And then in all 3 of those scenarios, you come away with nothing. I mean, Man,
Again, this is where the defense actually played. It helped that their best offensive lineman got hurt in the third play of the game. Their center is the best offensive lineman that the Saints have. And he got hurt in the third play of the game. And then it was, they were getting in there a lot more. The running game, he had 43 yards rushing. Kamara, 43 yards rushing through three.
yeah,
And they ran it 17 times, so they didn't get away from it either.
yeah,
It wasn't until Barkley did his 70-yard scamper
yep,
that Kamara came alive. And that's where I thought it was going to be the Kamara Barkley show. I thought that those two guys were going to have a day. Barkley wound up having a day. Kamara did not. Kamara was really and they were beating him up early.
Yeah.
They were giving him some hard shoves out of bounds.
yeah.
And it was a hard game, a hard fought game. I'm surprised though. Like I'm wondering about the spit incident.
So it's interesting. So I did finally see the video of it because I missed it in real time, and people are saying that there was two things wrong with it. They're like, oh, he dove on the guy, and he didn't. He actually kind of dove over him to get to a ball that was on the ground. So,
Right.
So I mean, it didn't sound like maybe the whistle was blown or maybe they couldn't hear it, but it looked like he was diving after what appeared to be a live ball. So he didn't land on the guy or anything like that, because there's a bunch of misinformation being thrown out there. They're like, oh, he dove with his helmet into his face. It's like, yeah, he totally did not do that. That's why none of the other players from Dude's team didn't try and protect him.
Yeah, the Eagles didn't jump on top
Exactly.
of him. You know what I mean?
Because had he done that, it would have been a full-on fight in the middle of the field.
100%. 100%.
And then when it came to the spit, like it didn't look like he tried to spit on him, right? He looked down at him, and I don't know if it was sweat or whatever. I mean, it did look like something happened, but usually when people spit on you, like there's some motion to it, right? Like they're actively trying to spit on you, and you don't see anything like that in the video. Now, did something spray out of his mouth or anything like that? I mean, possibly, I don't know, but I mean, it didn't look like most people look when they're trying.
No, it looked like he spit, and it may have been like close to. I don't know if it landed on him or whatever.
Exactly.
Like it's like I listen. These guys are fucking moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so it's like it's a whole different world. Sometimes you just you look over and you spit, and you didn't realize there was somebody right there.
No,
Yeah, you didn't mean to spit on him. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it looked like to me. And like I said, I'm an Eagles fan. I don't want my guy being spat on.
Well, but none of the Eagles jumped to the aid in that moment either, right? So I mean, how egregious were either one of these things in real time? Because those guys are standing over him.
Right. Well, I know that the moment that he got that hit, and you watched him dive over to go for the live ball, but that ball was dead at that point, and there were already 3 Eagles going, get over here now.
Yes.
So I saw that play. They were never going to call that a fumble because of the way that tackle occurred.
Yeah.
They were going to say that they blew the ball dead. So because the moment that collision happens, that ball has had to be dead. They can't continue the play because he was being grabbed by 2. They're kind of running with him, and that third guy just
cleaned him up.
The train. So, and obviously, like I said, it's he has a concussion right now and such, and I don't think he's going to play this week. I think he's going to be out this week.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, because he said he was in La La Land for a minute, but he walked off on his own power, which was good.
Yeah. No, I mean he looked like he was on another planet, laying on the ground.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, I couldn't see because all I could see was them laying on the ground. I couldn't get the camera that close or anything like that, but I can imagine. It's just, I mean, the kid is 190 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
He's not a big wide receiver at all. He's a little tiny one.
Yeah. And the dudes that were around him were big.
Right. Well, no, I mean, he had 2 linebackers and the safety coming in.
No,
so I mean, that's what occurred. I mean, it's like not that they were monster big. They were 220, 230, 230. I mean, it's just, but there's 3 of them and 1 of him, and
Well, and 30, 40 pounds is still 30, 40 pounds.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So, I mean,
especially when it's coming in the opposite direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's why, girls don't play the game. You know what I mean? It's that was a rough hit to take, but like I said, he'll get over it and he'll be back out there again. He was by far the best player on the field next to Dallas Goedert. Really, I'm still wondering where the defense. I didn't see the play again, so I don't know where the defensive breakdown went. Did I think two guys on defense ran into each other?
Yeah, when Goedert went towards the sideline, the linebacker went towards Goedert, and then the safety went the other way, covering the crossing route, and they ran right into each other.
And then it was wide open, 80 yards down the field.
Yeah.
And it was funny because there were guys on the field that were talking smack, and they're like, oh, yeah. And then I just went and did my whole dance in front of them. I'm like, this is what you get. Yeah.
That wasn't the thing.
It wasn't a cheap shot. It was not a cheap shot. It wasn't a cheap shot. Listen, I know it looks rough, but it was not a cheap shot. It wasn't.
It wasn't a headshot. It wasn't a late hit. It was a clean football hit. It's just the fact that you have a 320-pounder running full speed, sandwiching a 170-pounder between a guy. It's not going to end well for the small guy.
Exactly. Yeah, you lose that battle every time.
Like I said, so I don't think that was. And listen, it was a hard game in general. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were a number of times that the Saints fans were like, why aren't they getting calls here? Like Kamara was like, that first push out of bounds was 2 steps out of bounds when he got that push. And he went flying and landed hit the bench. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it was like, and then they did a couple other ones where it was just really hard. Like, as you're getting close to the sideline, there's really hard pushes that take you off your feet, send you flying. So Kamara was getting beat up a little bit, and the defense wanted to give it back a little bit. I don't know what happened at the end of the game. I lost track where we go to kneel on it the first time. They call timeout, and then everybody goes over to the Eagles sideline.
Oh, yeah. I guess I missed that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it seemed like that it was a contentious game in general. Because there was a time where an Eagles player was injured on that side, on their sideline. And all the Eagles are over there kind of protect. And then it's like pushing and shoving and stuff like that. There was a lot of that, mm-hmm. Especially after the whistle, lots of pushing and shoving and referees having to break stuff up. This wasn't a friendly game. It wasn't a friendly game.
No doubt.
So
that does get us to the halfway point. Let's do our little ad section here. And let's talk some baseball on the other side.
Let's do it.
This is Reggie Jones, owner and founder of Air Sports Academy. Air is based on the 4 core principles: heart, education, integrity, resiliency. Air is about developing student athletes physically and mentally through training, mentorship, and effective marketing. We've created a platform and a blueprint for our state to shine in the brightest of lights. I created this program because it was a need for our state. We needed to have the light shine on the student athletes in our region. And now that is happening at an all-time and undeniable rate. We created a lane for the kids in our state to get their college education paid for and set their families up for future success. We created an environment where serious athletes can now come compete fearlessly. We've achieved this through our variety of elite programs. Our 6-month off-season program, where first-year starters or seasoned vets can all come develop. Our 5-on-5 program, which is all about our line. Our youth tackle program, which is the first and only youth tackle team from the state of Washington to ever win a major national championship. Our 7-on-7 program, which is ranked top 10 in the country every year. Our high school 11-on-11 club tackle program, which creates a unique and much-needed opportunity for our kids. Our college prep program, which allows our graduates to come back from college and prepare for the upcoming season. Our track and field program, which creates an opportunity for our young air boys and air girls to continue to get bounced. When you're a national program, you receive national respect, which is why when you look at recruiting boards and top player lists from around the country, you'll always find players from Air on those lists. Which is why college coaches from some of the most prestigious schools around the country come into our facility to recruit our players. The Penn State, Alabama, Oregon, Stanford, Florida State, the list goes on. Our players are being recruited, offered, and committing to some of the top schools in the nation. The experience our players and families receive is second to none. We offer a competitive brand of sports at Air. We are the ball. And with that comes great responsibility. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. This is Air.
All right. So, Mariners are keeping their hopes alive. They did surpass my 78 wins, though. So, got that going for them.
How about that? Well, that's always something. I mean, so the Phillies have won the NL East, which was expected, obviously, at this point.
I found it very hard to believe when they said this last night that you guys have not won your division since 2011.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
I've
obviously in the playoffs, but
because you look at how they won to the World Series, they did it as a wild card, and then last year they went as a wild card too. I'm like, shit, that's right, because the Mets won it 15, 16, and 14. I think I'm like, damn, it's been that long, but I was shocked for how much success they've had.
Well, yeah, and then it was
the Nationals got it 1 year, the year they won the World Series.
Right. Yeah, they won it there in what was 12, right?
No, Nationals got it in 18. Because that was Bryce. That was either Bryce Harper's first year off of the team, or because Trey Turner
was his first year. It was his first year off of the team.
Yeah, so it would have been 18 is when the Nationals won the division, because then the Braves won it 19 through this year. Until the Phillies got it.
So, but looking at your Mariners, they're only a game and a half out.
Yeah, the wild card. They're making a push.
Who's your manager right now?
The problem is that
Dan Wilson.
Maybe they'll give him the job next year if they make the playoffs.
Oh, no. He was. They made an announcement as soon as that switch happened that he is the manager moving forward.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
not interim. Yeah. He's going.
Yeah, exactly.
How about that? How about that? The Yankees come out of the Orioles just fell apart.
The White Sox are really that bad.
Yeah, the White Sox are.
The White Sox are the definition of a dumpster fire train wreck.
Yeah, they're trying to be the worst team to ever play the game.
They are. They tied the record for the most losses in baseball history yesterday.
Yeah.
Or on Sunday, and now they have 6 games left where one more loss makes them the worst team in baseball history, which they're going to lose one more game.
So, no question they're going to do that. But also when it comes down to, percentage, because some of those were shorter seasons, right? So they have an opportunity to not only lose the most, but also have the worst winning percentage ever.
Which the only saving grace that they have right now is they have 3 games with the Angels right now, which the Angels aren't playing much better. So you could see the White Sox maybe steal 2 of those games.
No way.
You don't think so?
No way.
So the White Sox took 2 or 3 from them in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I don't see that being.
But then they have the Tigers the final 3 games after that, and with the Tigers battling for that last wild card spot, I don't see the White Sox winning any of those games against the Tigers over the weekend.
Yeah, no, probably not. I would imagine they steal 1 more game this year. Is my guess. They get 1 more win.
So maybe.
Yeah, that's probably like best case scenario.
Yeah, and how do you play on a team like that?
I think at this point you just want the season to be over, right? nothing, no tape you put out is going to be good enough to like do anything for you. Like at this point, I wouldn't doubt it if players are just kind of half mailing it in.
They've been
Well,
half
yeah,
mailing
but
since June.
yeah, no shit. But it's like, how do you like? You're the owner of the White Sox.
Okay.
Do you bring anybody back?
There's 2 players I bring back. That's it.
Well, do you bring the coaching back? Any
No.
coaches?
No, I don't.
Like
The
you
old-
have to do a wholesale.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's an interim coach already anyway, right?
Yeah, it's Grady Sizemore.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've already dismissed the coach that, they waited for him to finally end that ridiculous losing streak. He wins one game. They're like, cool. Bye.
You had a 14-game losing streak earlier in the year. You had an 11-game losing streak early in the year, and now you lost 21 straight. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, okay, you get to finish with a win. Hit the bricks.
Yeah, the only 2 players that I would bring back on the White Sox is Luis Robert, just because he's 24 and he is basically the face of that franchise right now, and then Garrett Crochet because that's your ace. Outside of that, I would not bring anybody back on this roster, or even the coaching staff for that matter.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I don't know. I can't imagine that they're going to be bringing up many people. Will you get 2 more? Or
One.
they already have them up now, right?
Yeah, it's 26 is what you get for the playoffs. It used to be when we had a 25-man roster that you were allowed to bring 1 more up for the playoffs for 26. But now that you have the 26-man roster, they'll just have to decide what 26 they're going to carry.
Right. It's because they still got to all be on the 40-man roster, and that for whatever series that is. Because I don't think that there's a chance that the Phillies would have to lose out just about and Milwaukee win 5 of 6 games to overtake us. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that we're either going to be the number 1 or number 2 seed. I'm actually half more tempted to be the number 2 seed. I'd like being the number 2 seed. Reason being is that I would prefer to start the Dodgers series for the NLCS in LA.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And it sounds funny. You want the home field advantage, but the one thing that I think that happened last year that we didn't account for as fans and as a team was that the fans and everybody got tired because obviously it was like we did the wild card games. We had the wild card games at home. So our first playoff game is a madhouse, and we're known for being ridiculously loud, so loud that it actually bothers the other team.
Sure.
So when that's occurring, you know what I mean? It's hard to maintain that. We had the 2 home games for the wild card. Then we had we went away to Atlanta, but we had those 2 games here at home. We won in 4. And then, we are the home team against Arizona. So we have the first 2 games here, then they have those 3 games, and then the last 2 games at home. Well, by those last 2 games, we were exhausted. So we weren't as loud. Not having the wild card is going to save us. Not having the second series at home. Like I like having those 3 games, that block of 3 games at home in the NLCS. So that's what I think. And then I would like to be home for the World Series.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But we'll have to see how that works out. Because I have a feeling it looks right now the Phillies and the Yankees are in a collision course. Trying to go up to Yankee Stadium for the World Series is going to be a mess.
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, so do you think it'll be the Yankees or you think the Guardians somehow?
The Guardians are the one team that I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I think it would be a much better series with the Guardians. I think it would go back and forth really well. I just think the Yankees have way too much power.
Oh, they do.
Just way too much. And if Soto is 100%, which I know he's right around like 85% right now, which is still amazing.
No, of course.
But it's like it's going to be tough. I see, but this is where I hope Seattle can make a little bit of a run here. I think Seattle could be the team that disrupts the world a little bit. Because when you look at all the standings, if Seattle goes in, they're going to be the number 6 seed, and they would play Houston in a series for the wild card, and then would have to play the Yankees. And you guys actually fared pretty well against the Yankees, did you not?
We snagged one of the 3. Yeah.
You only played 3 games against them?
I
played 6.
Yeah, we probably did. I just don't remember what the series was earlier in the year because it was quite a ways earlier.
Got ya. So, but I think that you guys split with them. For some reason, I remember you might have gotten the Yankees when they were on that losing streak.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. And of course, for the Mariners, they were so up and down during the season. Like there were moments where you're just like, okay, they were beating, good teams, and then they would find ways to lose against bad teams, and then the bats just decided to, call it a season.
Right.
So I mean, So I mean, the Mariners are a team that the pitching is good enough, and if the bats just randomly show up, they can take anybody.
Okay, so you guys split in May. It was a 4-game series. You took 2, they lost 2, and then you lost 2-1. So you guys have had pretty good series against them. Like out of the 7 games, you've taken 3, which still loses in a 5-game series, but at least I think.
Well, depending, because if you go 3-1 in a 5-game series, you win that series, or if you go 3-2.
I don't think that they have that type of thing.
Well, they don't have the bats. Like there's just no scenario where if they get their hat in the ring, there's no scenario where they have a sustained run because the bats are so inconsistent. Like the pitching is great, but if you're losing games 1-0 because you can't generate a run, it's still a loss, even though your pitcher had a great day, right? So, I mean, could they win a series? Could they surprise a couple of teams? No question, right? But if you're saying 3 different series, they haven't really done that this year, at least on the batting side. So, but could they ruin somebody's postseason? No question. Like, I mean, they can beat everybody. Houston's for sure. Yankees possibly. Like those things can happen. But are they a good enough team to go win a ring? Absolutely not. No, they don't have that.
Hey, you get Austin Hayes back tonight, Pigs.
Austin Hayes.
Yep. You got him at the deadline.
Got you.
He's an outfielder, so that could be, I guess, one player that's probably going to be added to your playoff roster. That hasn't played much for you since.
Yeah, because he got hurt, right?
Yeah, he's like one of the.
I'm not as big a like he's Marsh.
Well, he would be there for his glove, and you always want that defensive specialist late in the games in the postseason. I think that's ultimately what Hayes would be. He'd come in the game in the 7th inning and play 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then maybe get 1 at bat.
Yeah, we'll see. The one thing I did not like about Marsh playing left field is that he lets the ball go to the wall. Like I'm not a fan of, like he plays the bounce when it's rolled past him. Like he has bad lines to get to the ball. You can't let the ball hit the fence. It changes trajectory. It slows down. He's got to wait for it to see how it goes. And it's like, it's automatically a second thing. You get that ball a little closer and you don't have it hit the fence. To play at second. He may still make it to second, but it's a play. So that would be the one thing that I can appreciate about that. Listen, Seattle's really got a shot here. As I'm looking at this, you guys just beat the Astros 6-1.
Yep.
You take two more. You sweep the Astros. You got the division at that point.
Well, no, you're still behind.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right,
because
but-
they're currently still 4 games back.
All right,
So
that's
the division is basically lost because they'd essentially have to win out, and we'd have to obviously sweep them and then also have them lose a couple of games afterwards. So
wow.
like winning the division probably isn't a thing, but you have a real clear path to a wild card spot because you're a game and a half out and of the 6th and 7th, right? So I mean, like there's a real path to get into the playoffs. But yeah, division wise, you'd have to be perfect the rest of the way.
And you have everybody in the Central losing at the right time.
Yeah.
Minnesota Twins 3-7 in their last 10.
How mad are you if you're a Twins fan?
How about if you're a Royals fan?
Yeah.
Lost the last 7.
Yeah.
2-8 in the last 10. You win 3 of those games and
It's
you
a wrap.
haven't clinched. You haven't clinched.
No, exactly. Like both of those teams are actively trying to miss the playoffs.
Well, and now the Royals are on the road against Washington. Washington stinks, but they got Washington and the Braves. The Braves are still going to be fighting for that last spot.
No question.
I mean, the Braves. I don't think the Braves are going to make it this year. Obviously, they're just
they had a lot of
decimated
bad
with the pitching.
Yeah, they had a lot
Decimated
of
with
bad.
the pitching.
And they always say that injuries, you can't use injuries as an excuse because every team goes through the injuries.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Atlanta Braves this year, you can use it as a legitimate excuse for how many
3
people-
pitchers, three top pitchers, and
3
your top
pitchers.
guy.
And your top guy, Matt Olson, missed some time in April. Sean Murphy missed, I think, the first 2.5 months of the season. Like virtually every main piece of that team was hurt besides Austin Riley.
I mean, if you lose half of your starting rotation, like what do you want?
More than that, they lost 80% of their starting rotation for the first month of the season, and 60% of it was gone for half the season, if not more.
Well, that's what I mean. Is
Right.
they missed half of it for like most of the season.
Yeah, like you can't. I mean, and for them to be in the position that they've been in all season just goes to show you like how much depth that Braves organization has. Because I don't think there's too many teams that could have gone through the amount of injuries that team went through and were able to stay in the race as long as they were.
Oh, no chance. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we can still talk about him having a shot
Yeah.
is amazing.
Like I never want to use injuries as an excuse for any team. But when it comes to the Braves, if you're ever going to say a team basically missed the playoffs because of injuries, the Braves are a prime example this year.
Chris, I have no idea.
Yeah. That is the most baseball stat type of thing, though. Like, who's hit a grand slam with a 20-year-old on second with a blue sky and blonde hair? Like, baseball keeps the most ridiculous stats ever.
Well, when you're paying somebody 6 figures, I would hope so.
I mean, yeah, baseball's funny that way because they don't do it in any other sport, though.
No, they don't.
And I know that I don't know if you guys have spoken about it at all, but any thoughts on that whole 50-50?
Yeah, like it's cool, right? I mean, like,
But who cares, really? Like, I know that there's nobody that's ever done it before, which is, I guess, okay. And you know what? It would have been cool if he went 50-50 and he was a 20-game winner.
Well, and the other thing is,
exactly.
I think it would be, I mean, it's obviously a big deal because I don't know if anyone will ever do this again, but I think it would have been more of a big deal if he got to 60-60. And he's got a shot to get 60 stolen bases. He won't get 60 home runs, but even like 60-55, that's a season you might never see again for a player of his caliber.
No, for sure. And had he been pitching this year, I think we'd talk about it more. But, because he's a DH, it's sort of, I don't know, it just does something weird to it. Like it takes something away from it, right? Like I feel like the 40-40 clubs, members, because they had to play defense also added something to it. Whereas as a DH, and this is probably why DHs don't really get into the hall and stuff too, right? There's an element of the game that's missing.
Right. It's like you have to do a number of different things. Like it's you got to play defense, you got to go out there in the field, you got to run around a little bit, even if you're playing first base. But
no, exactly.
The fact that he hasn't pitched this year, and I wonder if he's been pitching now.
We talked about this last week when you missed the day that you missed. He has been cleared to pitch for the postseason. So now the question is, do the Dodgers start him, or do they just use him as a closer and throw him 2 innings when they need him to?
I think you use him in relief.
The moment that you use him as a closer, now when you bring him in as a pitcher, and stuff like that, and you take him out as a pitcher, does that affect the way he's still allowed to bat?
If he was a starting pitcher, the Dodgers play without the DH, and basically he hits for himself. But then when he comes out of the game, then the Dodgers do not get to add a DH. So once every 5 days, they don't have a DH when Shohei starts.
But when they pull him, then...
When they pull him, they can't add a DH. When they pull him, whatever pitcher comes into the game, they got to hit for themselves when they come up. Otherwise, it's going to just be a pinch hitter anyways. But once Shohei is removed from his start, they don't get to add a DH. And then the days he doesn't pitch, obviously, he's just going to play DH.
That's weird.
But if he's coming in as a reliever, that's the question. Because if he's coming in as a reliever, you could essentially use him as a DH to start the game. Let him play DH 7 innings, and then let's just say Walker Buehler gets pulled in the 6th. He would go from DH to the relief role. Then I don't know if they can swap out a DH at that point.
So I guess I'd never really paid attention when they have a position player come and pitch in a game that they're just getting smoked. When they pull that position player out, are they no longer playing their position? They don't get
those position players. You can't use a position player right now that's in the field. You have to use somebody that's on the bench.
Or you take somebody from the bench, move them to third base, and then that third baseman goes to pitch. But then after that third baseman pitches, they can't go back and play third.
Yeah, I guess I never really paid attention to it. Huh.
But then, I don't know how that's going to work though, because he's never pitched in relief at all. So I don't know how that would work. Where if he starts the game as a DH, and then
there's going to be so much involved with that.
Because
we have to know the DH rules.
Yeah, because if he starts the game as a DH, and then we get to the 8th inning, if they move him to basically the closer, then do they get to add a DH, or how does that work, or does it just basically give the Dodgers a free position where he just keeps a spot as a DH and then just pitches anyways?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how the rules written.
That's kind of why I kind of want to see him pitch now, just for that reason, to see how that works in terms of how his spot in the lineup is handled.
Yeah, because I think one thing should have nothing to do with the other. Actually,
yeah,
he's the DH/pitcher, and when he gets removed from the game pitching, there shouldn't be any reason why he couldn't still DH.
Yeah.
As long as he is the designated hitter. Because the designated hitter is exactly that. Mm-hmm. They are designated to be hitting. So the fact that he's able to do something else in the process of that, this hasn't come up.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's why it's going to be interesting to watch, because if it happens, there's a lot of questions just because no one's been able to do this before. That to me is probably more interesting than the 50-50.
Yeah. And I really do hope the Dodgers use him in the playoffs, because as good as he is as a starting pitcher, he's already had 2 arm injuries. So if he goes and shows that he can be a closer, why not just take him from a starter and use him as a closer? Because then you can pitch him more than once or twice a week if needed. You could throw him 5 days a week if you had to.
Yeah, but with the guy who's had 2 Tommy John surgeries, do you want to pitch him that much?
If he's only throwing 10 pitches an inning, 15 pitches an inning, 5 times a week is equivalent to basically 1 start of 90 pitches.
Yeah, but that may not be the case. He might be throwing 20 pitches a game.
Yeah, obviously you monitor his pitch counts, obviously, but if he goes out there and he's only throwing 15, 16 pitches an inning, you could use him 3 straight days, give him a day off, come back and use him again, and he's still going to be basically on that same pitch count he would be on if he was starting. and then you could use them more than just once or twice a week.
Well, and I mean, when you think about it, the rest of that team, their starters are good
when they're healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he would almost probably be more beneficial as a reliever, just because that is kind of a weaker spot in their game.
And you get max effort out of him for 2 innings, then where he can throw 97 to 100 basically for 2 innings, as opposed to maybe only getting that for 1 inning.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely some questions about how they're going to use him moving forward.
Because I've brought this up on other podcasts before, where at some point during the duration of his contract, I think he's going to have to make the decision to be a hitter full time, because I don't think he'll be able to be a starting pitcher and the hitter he is for the duration of his contract, just because I think the arm will catch up to him to the point where he's not going to be able to do it anymore. But if he really does want to hit and pitch both, moving to the bullpen might be the best way for him to do it for the duration of the contract.
Yeah, I figure he's a pitcher for half of his contract at best.
If he's a starter, yeah, but if he goes to the bullpen, I could see him being a pitcher for 7-8 years, just because he's not going to have the same amount of innings and the same amount of stress on that arm.
Sure. Yeah, I could go with that. That brings us to the top of the hour, though. If you're tuning in on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. If you're watching on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Other than that, we will see you all tomorrow. Take it easy, everyone.
Let's go.